Hello and welcome to Oak Road Hatter, where we are reflecting on what was a pretty poor showing and a poor result from Luton, but a great result and start to the season for Burnley. As always, I'm joined by Jamie Castle and Adam Driscoll. How are you guys?
It's reeling a bit from the result last night. It's been obviously almost 24 hours now. Confession time. I couldn't make it last night because of a gig that I had booked months ago, and thanks to Sky's sort of general knack of wanting to rearrange fixtures to clash with things, I couldn't make it. But I managed to avoid the scoreline by turning off all notifications, and I got back at about midnight, so I was up till 2 in the morning watching it as live. And yeah, I wish I'd have got those 2 hours of sleep, really, in hindsight. But yeah, it's probably a scoreline that isn't surprising. Probably didn't want to believe how unprepared we were, but yeah, it just showed the difference between a Scott Parker Burnley that has quite clearly got themselves ready and prepared for the season compared to us. But we'll no doubt we'll delve deeper into that in a bit.
Yeah, and all I can say is I'm glad we weren't recording the podcast last night straight after the game. Otherwise, there would have been quite a lot of editing, I think, to do. As Jamie said, hugely disappointing from our perspective. Again, just to echo what Jamie said, underprepared. We need to sort ourselves out fairly sharpish.
And this week we are joined by Andrew from Always Claret, who I'm sure enjoyed last night's game much more than we did. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, mate. Yeah, thank you for having us. Yeah, it was enjoyable. I won't be too smug about it and too overly pleased about it. But yeah, it was much more enjoyable than half the stuff we had to put up with last season. That's for sure.
Be sure to follow Oak Road Hatter on all your social media accounts. That's on Twitter or X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. So that's at Oak Road Hatter. And also check out Always Claret if you're looking for more Burnley content. If you're watching the video version on YouTube, please drop us a like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us what you think, and we'll try to get back to as much as we can if possible. Also, we'd love for you to rate the podcast, so be sure to give us 5 stars if you're listening to us on the audio version only. For all of us, it was a fresh start to the season, and I'm sure we were all looking into it with optimism. For yourselves at Burnley, it was a bit of a step into the unknown with Scott Parker, but someone who's got experience in the Championship before. So what were you anticipating going into that game?
In all honesty, it was sort of an unknown. All our pre-season friendlies seemed to be behind closed doors. Not a lot of information was revealed to us, so we didn't really have a clue of who was going to start. We played, I believe it was Cadiz last weekend in a friendly, which we were able to watch, and that was sort of the first taste of Scott Parker ball, as it were. So really, going into last night, we didn't really have a clue how we were going to set up, how similar we'd be as we were to last season under Company, what different, the players that he'd pick. No one knew who'd be our goalkeeper. So yeah, it was very almost like a litmus test, last night. And I think the lads at Turfcast, they sort of predicted that you guys had put in a really hard game, which we fully expected, and that's really what I expected coming into it. So yeah, it was sort of hard to predict from our side, but I'm just sort of pleased with how it came out.
And from our perspective, obviously, very little has changed at the club since last summer. Obviously, Rob Edwards is still there. We've lost a couple of players, the main one obviously being Ross Barkley, but I think optimism was the one thing that seemed to, you could feel it in the ground as you went into the stadium yesterday. And I don't know if it was the same for yourselves in the Burnley end, but it was an upbeat and optimistic feel, like it's a fresh start and we can get away from the constant defeats in the Premier League. But Adam, as you were there as well, I'm sure you felt that quickly sort of disappear.
Yeah, I think 5 minutes and 40 seconds it disappeared because it was the same defensive loot, and it was a through ball, you know, into a massive wide open space, and a defender or a midfielder who hasn't tracked an opposition player. We saw it so many times last season, albeit with the greatest of respect, a step up in quality from opposition players most weeks. Excuse me. So yeah, I mean, obviously it did evaporate quite quickly. 1-0 down, you're still thinking, come on, let's do something, get back in the game. But we didn't have any intensity about us first half. Um, you know, it was almost a case of, from my perspective personally, I was thinking they're going to get a second here and it's going to be curtains. And obviously they got the second, and it wasn't quite curtains because of what happened after for us, but then very quickly was. So yeah, it's a disappointing start, but it is only one game, and we do have opportunity, and we'll come on to later on to change and freshen things up a little bit in the next 2 weeks or so.
And Jamie, what did you make of that opening goal? Watching on TV, obviously watching it a bit later, but you didn't know what was going to happen at the time.
Yeah, so obviously I had the benefit of replays at the time, and it came out of nowhere. Obviously, had Pires left back, just sort of had the ball in quite a bit of space and managed to feed it through to the Brown, who was running beyond. And I think you can make a lot about it being wide open, but fundamentally it comes down to the personnel in that position, and it was Zach Nelson who, to my mind, I mean, quite clearly as fans we aren't fully up to speed on academy players' best positions or where you think they're gonna be going forwards, but I always had him as like a almost right winger / number 10 sort of player. So the fact that he's now being square pegged in round hold into a midfield two alongside Baptiste, I think in itself is a bit of a big call. I don't want to be too negative or much more negative than that, but ultimately it's not a player that I think belongs in a midfield two. So nothing on Nelson at all. He lost his runner. It's his debut in the EFL. His sort of starting debut, first time at the Kenny. I'm pretty sure. I don't believe he's played at the Kenny in like a senior game before. So the fact that he's lost a very experienced Brownhill is no sort of bad thing towards Nelson. It's just, I think, a bit of a brave call from Edwards. And if we were really lacking in central midfield, then you probably need to shore it up elsewhere. So that was a bit frustrating. And I just think, okay, you might want to play Nelson there, but you might want to tweak it elsewhere. I think in the build up to the goal, Ogbene got dragged up to sort of press Pires, but wasn't fast enough. So therefore you had Walters that was then dragged along to the right to mark COYH, who I thought was brilliant last night, by the way, which then just freed up so much space because Mengi was still sort of almost to the left of the middle, looking at Foster. So there was so much space between Mengi in the middle and Walters on our right that Brownhill just had the freedom of Luton just to run beyond because Nelson lost him. And I think it was very disappointing that maybe if you've not got a midfield to dominate a game, you might just step off a little bit and not really go man to man because you just leave way too many spaces. But you'd think you'd learn from it, and then suddenly they get a second sort of late on at the first half, and as Adam said, you sort of think it's curtains. So yeah, same mistakes as last season with a little bit different personnel, but yeah, you just need to strengthen in that midfield, or it was going to be a goal that we'll concede a lot this season.
And Andrew, when you saw the lineup for yourselves with the likes of COYH and Odobert and Lyle Foster all playing together, did you feel that the opportunity to get in behind would be there?
Yeah, definitely, especially with Odobert and COYH. You know, we saw last season at the start of the season how good COYH was, and then obviously got the injury that kept him out for the rest of the season, and it brought Odobert in. Excuse me, brought Odobert in to get a bit of a chance, and I think for me personally, and probably the majority of Burnley fans, we've spent the summer thinking Odebert's not going to be a Burnley player when we play you guys. Like by that point, he will have gone. So to see him and Kolyoshaw in the same starting 11 is something that we've been desperate to see last season. So it was exciting anyway. And then with Lyle Foster, he's sort of becoming a bit of a cult hero down at Turf Moor. We know what he can do. We saw it quite a bit last season where, running at defenders. I mean, the fourth goal in itself, that's Lyle Foster all over with pure determination. So yeah, it was sort of not expected, but not as surprising that we were able to get in behind as much as we were compared to how we were playing last season.
And I think for Luton fans, that fourth goal where Lyle Foster was given the opportunity to just take it from your box all the way to our box, I think that was maybe one of the most frustrating moments of the night. Would you share that thought, Adam?
Yeah. I mean, I watched it back, and it's like if there was like the circus music playing in the background, that would be fitting because there's just three of our guys running after him, not getting anywhere close to him, and then Doughty has to come across because we've got three players that are just running in treacle next to him, and obviously then that leaves a massive gap for I think it was Vitinho, wasn't it? Yeah, great finish, and it is what it is, but. Yeah. I can't remember what the question was, but yeah, I do share the same thoughts. Yeah.
And Jamie, was there anything you noticed that we might not have noticed about any of the goals, being able to watch on TV?
I think that there was a few tactical questions for me. I think obviously forgetting the first and second that were basically copy and paste. So it's the same issues in both goals. I mean, the third O'Shea, obviously a great run off his man from O'Shea. So to give credit to him, but again you've got Zach Nelson was man to man marking O'Shea at a corner. Now again you've got an attacking player who, I mean, he's not short, but he's not exactly big either. To have him marking one of the Burnley centre halves, I think is just a complete mistake because I'm pretty sure Walters was zonal, so he came out to try and win it. But when O'Shea's got that momentum in the run and that height, he's going to win it 9 times out of 10. Great header down. Kaminsky sort of comes across him. Yeah, who knows from the angle whether he can do better. But regardless, I think just the set piece choice to put Nelson on O'Shea is just a crazy one, like absolutely crazy. Whether that was an actual instruction from the set piece coach or whether it was just that the players got lost in the moment, who knows? But yeah, fundamentally you can't allow that to happen. And if it is the players on the pitch, then that sort of talks to like a leadership. Like, where's the player on the pitch saying, "No, Nelson, you got off him. I'll mark him instead," or whatever. You got players sort of almost at a loss, and it's a big moment because you're 2-1, and we were lucky to escape at 2-0. I think you had the sort of the left strike from O'Shea that Kaminsky made a great save, and then you had the one off the post as well. So it could have been 3 or 4 before 2-1. Lucky to get to 2-1, and then just a set piece makes it 3. And then on the fourth, I mean, we just changed it, I believe, to a back 4, and I think again some crazy reason it seems like he went Ogbene, Walters, Mengi, and Doughty as a back 4. So you've got a right winger as a right back, you've got a left wing back as a left back, and you've got really a sort of a right back / right centre back in a 2 alongside Mengi. That right centre back in Walters completely loses the fact that we've gone to a back 4, so he goes on a crazy run, which he was unlucky to not sort of not do more of it, but just forgets that actually he's meant to be in a back 4 here now. So suddenly you're one centre half down, and then Foster goes on a crazy run, and you've got then a back 3 of Chio, Doughty, and Mengi, which it's just, I think I saw it coming the minute Foster managed to drive through our midfield. Mengi was sort of looking left, looking right, and thinking, "Fuck, like, what am I going to do here?" You had Coutinho that was pinning Doughty back. So just a fundamental lack of communication between the staff and the players, and the players themselves. A few slight concerns, I think, and I hope can be fixed by personnel that we will hopefully look to recruit and get back from injury in the next 2 weeks. But there's some things to keep an eye on in the coming weeks.
And I think from a Luton perspective, we didn't create much to test the Burnley defence, but when we did get a ball into the box or tried to get a ball into feet in front of goal, Esteve and O'Shea were really there every time. Did you ever feel threatened by Luton going forward during the game, Andrew?
To be honest, whenever you got a set piece, I thought, "Oh, here we go. This is the sort of thing." Think so. Last year, obviously, how well you guys were at set pieces, as well as how much we crumbled at set pieces. James Trafford, he's not the biggest guy, and as you guys, I'm sure you guys will attest, he's not the strongest on the ball when he's coming for it in the air. So yeah, set pieces were sort of my main concern. But to be honest, we seem to handle everything quite well. Like say Dara O'Shea and Esteve, they were just head and shoulders above what we've seen last year. So yeah, they were absolutely fantastic for us, and all credit to Trafford. I think he had a relatively decent game as well, collecting the crosses when they came across. Obviously, apart from when Chong put it in the back of the net, but he can't be perfect, can he? So yeah, I think set pieces were my main concern, but I think we managed to handle them relatively well.
Andrew, I was going to ask you. I saw today there's a big link with O'Shea going to Brentford. Like how much of a loss is that going to be, and will that be you guys going back into the market, or have you got someone else that will step in?
No, so we've got Ekdal and Bayer, who were two of our centre backs from the season we won the league. And personally, I'd be gutted if O'Shea left just purely on the performance of last night. And from last season, he started off as not the best centre half for us, but he was given a chance and he got the chance to grow over the season. So I do think it would be a shame to lose him so early on after only having him for a year. But you can't reject, the chance to play in the Premier League, and he probably does deserve to play for a team like Brentford. So I'm not too upset about him going, because we do have defensive cover. We've already got quite a bloated squad as it is. I think we're expecting quite a few players still to leave, with probably not many incomings now, because we've got that much of a big squad. But yeah, we've got Bayer, Ekdal, McNally, CG, Egan Riley. I'm sure I probably missed another couple of centre halves on there. So yeah, we should be okay if this move does materialise to Brentford.
And I'm sure Jamie and Adam will agree when we say that we would be quite jealous to have even just one of those centre backs available on top of the minimal cover we currently have. Now we're going to move on a bit here, and we're going to discuss sort of Burnley going forward this season. Obviously, you are one of the favourites to go straight back up, I'm sure, and we have also been mentioned as a favourite, but I'm not sure any of us have seen that after last night's performance. But just how confident are you in terms of getting back into the Premier League under Scott Parker?
I think after last night, I'm very confident. Obviously, like I said before, we didn't really know what sort of style of play. Obviously, Parker's had a bit of time out of football as well, so we weren't sure how he'd approach the game. But now I've seen how he can play, I think from his post-match interview as well, it's sort of an indication that the tactics last night were specific for you guys, and he's going to be looking to tweak that each and every game, which I'm quite excited to see, because last season, especially under Company, okay, we romped the championship, we did quite well there, but then last season we didn't. The style of play was very possession based, not very direct, no plan B. Almost, it was pass, 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 and that is it. Whereas it looks like Parker is willing to change it up a little bit as and when it's needed. So yeah, I'm fairly confident now that maybe we don't finish top. It's still we've only played one game. It's a hard league to get out of. We all know that. I don't want to get too carried away, you know, with last night's result. But I'm a bit more confident now than I was before about certainly finishing in top four. And even automatics is a strong potential now for us.
And in terms of looking at Luton again, obviously after that performance, you mentioned there, Andrew, you don't want to get carried away, but I think for Luton fans, it is a bit of a panic set in, especially on that fourth goal. I mean, it was a panic to leave the stadium quickly, but a panic generally. If you looked at social media, there was some criticism going towards the board, and doesn't happen often at Luton at all. And also, Edwards' press conference and his comments he made were not very well received. What do you think the main concern, Adam, is from what we saw last night and from the summer that we've seen?
Well, the main concern is the fact that we would have known very, very well, yeah, at the start of the year that we were going to lose midfielders if we got relegated, and we've done nothing to counter that apart from sign Baptiste. Clark got injured, which was just ironic given that we have problems in defence. So it just sums it up really. But yeah, complete lack of planning. And just everyone can see, all the fans sit there and we can see glaringly obvious that where our issues lie, but we've done nothing about it. And I saw today Gary Sweet was saying we're going to have a busy couple of weeks. We're going to do our business late on in the window. Well, let's hope that one or two has turned into 4 or 5, because I think very much we need a lot more than 1 or 2. Put it that way.
Would you share that thought, Jamie?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard not to. Completely agree with Adam. How you can be so unprepared going into the season. You've known since mid-June as well that the first game was against Burnley, right? So you think, well, that's an early 6-pointer. Not that you want to call games 6-pointers early on, but you think, well, Burnley are going to be up there alongside us, hopefully. So to start the season off with 3 points is massive, and to go into that having to play Nelson at centre mid and Johnson at centre half, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, and I appreciate that the market probably is a bit difficult, because not only are some clubs finding issues sort of financially and trying to get the most they can for their assets, but also looking at Luton and thinking, well, they're pretty flush with cash. Let's try and charge them an extra $1 or 2 here, or maybe even 4 or 5 million. But there has to have been players in the market that were achievable. You've got, just in the last 48 hours, you've got Jordan James left Birmingham to go to Rennes, albeit you would class that as not going to Luton, but for €5 million apparently. Now, why weren't you in for him sort of June the 1st, window opens? It's just crazy how you're not prepared, and you've not got midfield targets that you're going after early on, because you knew that you were going to let go Luke Berry, and you're going to lose Barkley, and you're going to lose Lukonga. So to have seen 3 out and 1 in over what is a probably best part of 12-week period, and go into that game and, okay, yeah, unfortunate to lose Jordan Clark, but you probably shouldn't be playing Jordan Clark in the midfield too anyway, so you can't really say that that's like a good enough excuse. So yeah, lots to do. It seems like we're going to lose more players. Okay, albeit not the big ones, but Woodrow and Taylor and Townsend. So that frees up 3 more spaces. So now I think we've probably got 5 spaces left in the squad. So let's try and reconfigure the squad a little bit. We were probably a bit overweight in forward, so maybe we can shift that across now to a few more midfielders or defenders. But yeah, I think so far it's been pretty unacceptable. And okay, albeit I don't want to cast judgment fully until the window shuts, but time is ticking.
We'll just get a final thoughts from Andrew onto, well, looking at who he thinks their main rivals will be before we go to a quick break. So, Andrew, if you could pick 1 or 2 clubs in the league who you think will be your main rivals for automatic promotion this season, who would they be?
I think before the season started, I think I had you guys down as winning the league. I do still think you'll be up there. I do think you'll bring in the player, some of the players that you need. It's a long old season. I know it's a typical thing that people always say, isn't it? But it's a long season. It's one game. We had the new manager bounce. All those things put together, and like I say, no one really knew much about us. So I do still think you'll be up there. So I'd probably say you guys. Leeds, I know everyone's tipped them to be favourites, but I wasn't really overly impressed with them over the weekend. Um, I have thrown sort of like an outsider in Hull as being one of our rivals for promotion. So I'll probably say it's going to be between you guys, us, and Hull, and maybe even sprinkle Coventry in there.
Thank you very much for joining us, Andrew. In the second part, we'll be talking about a bit more on recruitment, which I'm sure, as Jamie might have alluded to, he has quite a lot to add to that. And we'll also be looking ahead to our visit to Portsmouth. But before we go to a break, just once again, thank you, Andrew. Where can we find Always Claret?
Yeah, thank you guys for having us. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Just search Always Claret. Do a lot of graphic design, mainly Burnley, obviously. But if you guys ever need something done for Luton, I'd be more than happy to do that. But yeah, thank you for having us, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
We're going for a quick break now, but we'll be back shortly. Welcome back to Oak Road Hatter, where I'm still joined by Jamie Castle and Adam Driscoll. We're going to discuss a bit more on recruitment now, as I think after last night we could all see that additions are needed and they're needed fast. And one player was spotted at Kenilworth Road by the cameras, and that's former Swansea midfielder Liam Walsh, who has had some injury struggles previously. But what are your thoughts on him coming in as a potential addition, Adam?
Yeah, he is a midfielder, but we need a midfielder with something a bit more about them, in my opinion. Now, that might be a bit harsh because I've probably never seen the guy play, but I think he's done 97 league games in the last 9 seasons, which, yeah, is not really what you want. And again, it's the free agent route, isn't it? Why is a midfielder still a free agent on the 13th of August? And why are we linked with someone who is a free agent at this time of the season? I don't understand it. If he's on trial, I could understand that if they're having a look at somebody, but that isn't that's not the midfielder that the pedigree of midfielder that we need and we should be going after. So yeah, I'll try and bite my tongue and not comment if they announce this tomorrow, because otherwise I think it will be a bit too negative from me, really.
Jamie, have you got any thoughts on him as a potential addition, or is there someone you would prefer in that area that could be potentially coming for a cheap price, as that seems to be what the club's looking for?
I mean, I'm not sure why it's what the club is looking for. First of all, I mean, on Liam Walsh, I mean, yeah, copy and paste everything Adam said. Really, I mean, his last probably good season was for Coventry in League One in 2019-20. So I think that just says it all. That now we're looking at him in the Championship in 2024-25. He's still on a free come August the 13th, and okay, maybe don't look at that too much because he might have had some League One offers and he might be holding out for a Championship offer. But I don't see how, as a parachute payment club, we should be going after players like him, and with the greatest of respect to him. But you've gone from Ross Barkley and Lukonga. You've signed Baptiste, who I think, by the way, is an excellent signing. I think he showed glimpses last night just how much quality he does have, and he was actually showing a little bit of of the qualities that Ross Barkley was and the Congo was at times, in terms of the way he could turn in tight spaces. And okay, he was being put under pressure quite a bit, but he put that down to a bit of rust. He's not really played full seasons for a while, but I think sort of overall, I'm really happy with the Baptiste signing. But that's because you've got someone like him who adds value to the starting 11, and I just cannot see how Liam Walsh can add value to the starting 11. I mean, is he really better than Jordan Clark? Is he really better than Paddy Panzu, than Marvelous Nakamba? Again, I don't know because I don't know an awful lot about him, but I would probably hazard a guess that no, and there's definitely players out there that, as I said, I mean, okay, he's gone now, but Jordan James, €5 million. I know Ethan Erhon is a player that we've spoken about a few times in terms of he can't really be worth that much. I mean, 5 million tops probably, and whether we think he's worth that or not, sometimes you just need to pay a little bit over the odds to get the players that you want, and it's about time now that we stop paying for players based on what we think they're worth, and paying for the players that we think are the number ones or twos in terms of options that we want to strengthen our team, because players aren't going to play ball anymore. Like the club, sorry, the clubs realise where we are, and they are going to charge us for that. And now I'm not saying we go out and sign a player that we think is worth £3 or £4 million for £10 million. That's not what I'm saying. But you just need to maybe pay 5 or 6 rather than really push basement prices for players that you think are in your squad, because hello, you're after that player because you think they're good, and we've got a reputation of bringing in good players and bringing them in to develop them and then sell them on. We bought Mengi for £1 million. He's now worth 20 million plus. Clubs are going to see that and think, why am I going to sell my asset to Luton Town? Clearly Luton Town want him, so clearly they see something in him that is going to be worth future value. So let's try and get future value now, because we want to get that value in, and they feel that they have the right to get that value. And that is fair enough. It's just like if a team like a Brighton wanted one of our players, wanted Doughty, wanted Mengi, wanted Eli, I'd be thinking, well, Brighton are a pretty good recruitment team, that they've got a track record of buying players low and selling them on for quite a lot. Maybe rather than charge them 20 for Mengi, let's charge them 30 or 35, because we think that they're going to develop him into an £80 million centre half one day. It's just the reputation that you build for yourself, and okay, a victim of our own success, but that's the way it is. And I think we just need to be a bit braver. I know the past of financial difficulties, etc., but we are light years away from that, and I don't think spending £10 million this window or £20 million this window net, not just spend £10 million, but net £10 million. I would love the club to come out and say, look, yeah, if we spend £10 million, we're going to be in a bit of bother. But based on what we know the FFP rules are, we are miles away from making that level of loss. Miles away. We're probably in a profit of 40-50 million quid last season alone. So yeah, I just can't see why that what reason they can give to say now we cannot spend this money.
And Adam, I think it was pretty clear last night where the problem areas were in that side. Do you think we need a centre half? Do you think we need one, two?
We definitely need one. I do understand the concept of we've got. I know Bell was back on the bench yesterday, which was quite surprising. So he's clearly not far away. Anderson and Burke, they reckon, are about 2 weeks behind Bell. I do think we can. Just because we've got bodies coming back at centre half doesn't mean we don't need to think about recruiting there. I even with a fully fit team last night, I think we'd have struggled defensively against those runners of Burnley. So, you do have to start thinking like, okay, those guys are coming back, but can we go out and buy someone? And spend money. Can we go and buy someone that's better than the guys we're also waiting for? And yeah, I mean, so in that, I think one centre half, and spend money and get a good one in, and then obviously multiple bodies, at least two in midfield. We'll probably come on to it, but Pelly doesn't seem to get a look in under Edwards, so what's the point there? But yeah, one centre half to answer your question, I think is definitely what we need.
And would there be?
Sorry, if I just add there, I think if you look at the life cycle of our centre halves, right? So we lost Cal Naismith, 2.5 years ago was it, around that, and we obviously wanted to replace him as a left sided centre half, and either we didn't want to or didn't choose to because we thought Bell could step up there, or we just couldn't. Fine, Bell stepped up and I thought he was excellent, but still probably should have by now found someone that could step in to be left sided centre half, or maybe improve upon Bell. But okay, championship season just gone, or the one before we got promoted, he was excellent, and I think for me very underrated because I put him in the 4-4-2 preview as sort of my most underrated player. But then we go into the Premier League season, and if you asked me, I think actually I was asked before going into the season, what one position do you want to see us strengthen? I said left side of centre half, because one day will come a time where we need to either replace Bell or improve upon Bell, but we didn't. Again, I thought Bell did really well. He stepped up, but then got injured. But then we had to play right-footed centre halves over on the left, or occasionally played Hashioka there. Occasionally played Alfie Doughty there. And yeah, he's coming back from injury, but you still want to improve upon Amari Bell at some point or give him competition. But no, you haven't done that. You now put Joe Johnson, who again I believe by trade is more of a left back, maybe straight left wing back. You're now playing him at left side of centre half. Regardless of if Bell comes in, I do not want Joe Johnson to be my second choice left centre half. You need to take the pressure off him, and I think for me, I put Joe Johnson as more of a left wing back in the system rather than a left centre half. So regardless of injuries, I want to see a left footer come in that back three. Now, I am of the opinion that other than that, I think we're fine, because you've got Mengi, Anderson, Holmes, Walters, Burke. You've got numbers in terms of right footers that can play in that sort of middle or right sided, and I saw enough of Walters last night that I really want to persist with him in that right centre half role. So for me, can we improve upon Walters now? Maybe. But I think it's worth this season sticking with Walters in terms of that first choice right side of centre half. But is it worth sticking with Bell? Is it worth not seeing if we can improve upon him? I don't know. I just feel that if we were to have everyone back fit, everyone available, what would be potentially the weakest link in our team? And it's that left side of centre half, when you've got one of the most attacking left wing backs in the league. That is the one position in this setup where you need to be absolutely solid, and I just don't think we are. So regardless of injuries, I think, yeah, one centre half, left sided, and then we're done for centre halves. But obviously we've got other positions that need players.
I'm sure we've all got a lot more to say on the transfers that we'd like to see and the bodies that we need in and or would just want in potentially. If you've got an opinion on the players that you'd like to see in, please let us know in the comments on YouTube or tweet us at Oak Road Hatter. We're going to move on to a look ahead to this weekend's game, and it's a nice trip down to the south coast to play a newly promoted side. What more could you want after a opening day defeat? But then when you look at we're playing Portsmouth, who've just drawn 3-3 with Leeds United in their opening game of the season. So, what are your thoughts going into that game, just from the back of their result compared to ours, Adam?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Fratton Park will be bouncing. First home game back in the Championship for a long time. And they'll obviously be looking at our result last night going, these guys aren't too good at the back. Now, it doesn't seem like too many bodies as we speak in that area will come back on before Saturday, whether or not we'll have to throw Bell in, potentially. But it's going to be a tough game. At the moment, the way we are defensively with those issues, every game is going to be hard. I don't have much confidence for a clean sheet, so we're going to need to, score. And we never really have a problem scoring, do we? Let's be honest. But at times last night we did struggle to be progressive. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really tough game. And if again, like I said last week, I probably would take a point until we get to the end of this window. And we see reinforcements, Portsmouth away. I'd take a point if you offered it me right now.
And Jamie, where can you see the danger for Portsmouth coming from?
I mean, I think it's a tough one as a promoted side. Obviously, two leagues apart about 4 months ago, so it's not one that you obviously get clued up on. But I know they've got a fairly experienced Callum Lang, who obviously did really well last weekend. I mean, just on, I guess, the result, I do think Leeds were unfortunate. I mean, if you look at like the XG that Portsmouth actually put up, and again, football wasn't played on XG, but I think they were sub-1 and scored 3 goals. So I think they were very efficient, let's say, with regards to sort of goal scoring last weekend. And I think, let's make no bones about it, Leeds deserved to win that game last weekend, and probably fairly comfortably. So let's just hope that they've used up all of their goals for the month and sort of failed to score this Saturday. What I did see is that they were fairly defensively susceptible. I mean, Ogilvy was a bit of a donkey for the Leeds penalty. He just brought down Dan James with no bearings around him at all. So if I'm looking at sort of Chong or Ogbani against Ogilvy, you expect quite a bit of joy down that right hand side. So yeah, I wouldn't take a point. I think a point just isn't good enough. Okay, I do appreciate the issues they're having at the minute with regards to recruitment and injuries, but this team has more than enough in it from what we saw last season to go to Fratton Park and take all 3 points. And if I'm being honest, I think it's about time they gave us one, because I have very vivid memories of that League One season, and we absolutely battered them for 90 minutes and lost 1-0. So yeah, it's about time they give us 3 points, and hopefully we battle them again and come out on the right side of the result. But no, I'm definitely expecting a Luton win on the weekend. So I think we've got attacking players of the calibre of Leeds. Yeah, I think obviously midfield is a bit of an issue, but yeah, if we can get Clark back, or if maybe Edwards can just realise the situation at the minute and tinker and have a bit more of a sort of sure midfield and put Pelly in there alongside Baptiste, for example, then I think we'll go to Fratton Park and get the win.
And do you think the system we've been trying to play, well, since the second half of last season, then obviously last night as well, it's quite gung ho going forward and leaves us pretty exposed in defence. Is that something that needs to be changed away from home against well, anyone in the Championship, Adam?
I'm not sure it needs to be changed against anyone. I think you could adapt it for the tougher games. It is very gung ho, as you say, and I think when you're going to Leeds and going to Burnley and Sheffield, it could be an absolute disaster. That kind of, we're going to score one more than you. Well, we don't sometimes. So yeah, but then equally, there are away games where you think we on paper are the favourites, regardless of whether you take a point or you expect three, where you shouldn't be changing your system for certain opposition. The query I have, the issue I have at the moment is that we have other options, right? So Tom Holmes is on the bench last night, Pelly's on the bench, and you think, they've got more experience than the two young lads, and I'd feel a lot more secure until additional bodies come in that those two step in. I love JJ. I think Zach Nelson looks quality, but they've basically been chucked into the deep end and expected to try and not drown against some of these teams. So I'd be happy to keep the same formation, but you need those experienced players in Pelly, in Holmes, and then obviously we need to reinforce, as we've alluded to many times already.
And let's hope we don't drown whilst on the south coast. I'm going to go to you now for score predictions. Jamie, I'll start with you.
Would love to predict a comfortable scoreline, but I just can't see how we keep a clean sheet at the minute unless, as Adam said, we bring in a Holmes and sort of really shore it up. So I expect Pompey to score, but I think we'll just have enough going forward. So I'm going to go for 3-1 Luton.
And Adam?
I will go for 1-1. I think, again, clean sheet is unlikely to happen. Can we score the first goal? I hope so. I do hope so. I think it's going to be a real tough game. So as we stand at the moment, I'll go for 1-1.
And I'm going for a Luton win, just about, as long as we've nothing like we were against Burnley. And I've gone for a 2-1 win because I don't think we've got a clean sheet in us at the moment. We'd love to hear your score predictions. So as always, if you comment or send your score predictions to us, that's all from us. But we'll hope to see you down in Portsmouth this weekend. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube. Check us out on social media. That's at Oak Road Hatter on all social media, and subscribe on Spotify. Thank you from myself, from Jamie and Adam. Come on, you Hatters.